Now, when we're looking at solving for a velocity, a final velocity in particular, when we don't know displacement. So there are times where we don't know how far something went. We may know how far it's in the air, we may know the acceleration, but we do not know the displacement. So in that case, we again can take some equations that we already used, solving for average acceleration, using v over t and velocity final minus velocity initial over t. Just rearranging this equation gives us this, all right? Again, it's not new to us, but we're rearranging it to focus on solving for velocities, solving for velocities versus solving for accelerations here, because we do not know the displacement. So here we are. We are driving along at 22.0 meters per second. To pass a car, we accelerate to 2.30 meters per second squared for 3 seconds. How fast are you going after you pass the car? Okay, so we know lots of information. So let's go over to our screen here, and we will take a look at the information that we know as soon as I darken this a little bit for you guys. And we know that we're driving along. We do not know the displacement, so this is not given to us. We have no idea what the displacement is. Our velocity final is what we're looking for. So we're trying to solve for this. Our velocity initial was 22.0 meters per second. Our acceleration was 2.30 meters per second squared. And we accelerated for 3 seconds. Okay, so that is what our knowledge is, what we have. And now we're going to set it up and solve it. So we know that to solve this, our velocity final is equal to our velocity initial plus the acceleration times our change in time. So our velocity final would equal our initial velocity, which was 22.0, plus the acceleration, which was 2.30, times our time, which was 3 seconds. Okay, if we do that, velocity final, when we solve that, we figured out that our velocity would be 28.9 meters per second. Now let's take a look at our units. So our initial velocity was in meters per second. We're going to add that to an acceleration, which is meters per second squared times seconds. So if we look, seconds squared times seconds, the seconds cancels. So we end up with meters per second plus meters per second. So our answer is in meters per second, which is the velocity. In this case, everything is forward, so that would just be a positive velocity. We wouldn't have to tag that as negative or anything like that. Okay. Now, this one we really don't have a graphical representation because we've already talked about how you work with the graphical stuff for our velocities. All right. That is when we solve for velocities when we don't know displacement. Keep in mind, if you knew the final and the time and the acceleration, you could rearrange this to solve for initial velocity also. You could even find an acceleration if you knew the other things and go that way.